Like Paul, I give thanks for you. We are grateful to have been partners with you in the ministry of Jesus here in this place for these past 20 years. It's hard to believe it's been almost 20 years. In October, we will start year 21. If you'd told me it would be 20 years, I would have never believed it, because the typical cycle of pastors is 3, 4, 5, 6 years in denomination. And we had done 5.5 one place and 2.5 another place. That 2.5 was hell. And we talked about that before. And I didn't know, but I'm grateful. I'm incredibly grateful that God has allowed us to be here all these years, and I'm grateful for you and to you for the work that we've done together. And I pray that the work that we will continue to do will be just as fruitful as it has been in the past. And I don't want to go anywhere, and neither does Pastor Sharon. We love this place, and we love you guys. You hold a special place in our hearts. That's what Paul's saying to the Philippian church too. And just like Paul, we pray your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep growing in knowledge and understanding of Jesus. Because it all starts with Jesus. Here at Community of Joy, our very first core value is always Jesus. All that we do, all that we say, all that we're about should be about Jesus always. We lift him up. He's our leader. He's our forgiver. He's our guide. He's our model. He's the one that gives us love that we can receive it from. He's the one that gives us love to give love to others. He's the one that helps us become love in the world. Paul wrote to the Philippian church that God, who began a good work in them, would continue that good work. And I believe that that is true for us too here at Community of Joy. As we grow by becoming love in our community and do the work of transformation continues in and through us in our community. We continue to live out our core values by becoming love, by creating goodwill in our community. And we have been on a path these past several years of really creating a goodwill that I have not ever seen in the life of a church and its community. It's really pretty special. And so you'll see that as we talk this morning. It used to be that when, 20 years ago when we came here and you asked anybody about Community of Joy, no one had a clue because it wasn't called Community of Joy. It was called Salisbury Community Church of the Brethren. And we and the leadership really felt like we ought to have a name that described something about who we were. Some positive quality. Community of Joy. Who wouldn't want to be a part of a community of joy? And so we asked them to consider changing the name. And we led them through this process of figuring that out. And I didn't have a suggestion. Actually, my suggestion was at the water's edge. I had this idea, a lot happens at the water's edge. And we're in this area where lots of water. And anyhow, that's a story for another day. And thankfully, they didn't like it. But the piece of our name that they really liked was the word community, because it communicates something that we want to be about. And so we became Community of Joy. And then for a while, you would tell somebody that you were a part of Community of Joy, and they'd say, "What's that?" or "Where's that?" I love that name. And now, 20 years later, you say something about Community of Joy, and lots of people know about Community of Joy. They know who we are. They've heard of some of the things that we do in our community. It's really cool. We've become known as the little church with a big heart, as I like to say. Every year in January and February, last year it was January, this year it's February, most years it's February, we join with the church next door, Bethany Lutheran Church, and 2 other churches, Beacon of Light and the Restoration Project, and we host a homeless men's shelter for 2 weeks. Now our facility we've outgrown it for this shelter. And so last year we rented a warehouse with the help of a grant from Community Foundation of Eastern Shore. We paid $950 a week to rent this warehouse, not counting the the heat and all of that. And it took a lot of oil to heat that old big old warehouse. But we hosted this homeless men's shelter. And here's some of our children enjoying playing and engaging with our guests. And not only the children got involved, but adults get involved. And the youth got involved. I just love these kind of things that we can do as a congregation that are intergenerational. And not only that, check this out. That's the leadership team at Lowe's. The gentleman standing next to me is one of the managers there, Will Braxton. For 3 years now, Lowe's has called us up every year and said, hey, we want to donate lunches. We want to do lunches for 2 weeks for your homeless men's shelter. And he did it again this year. Before I had had a chance to reach out to him to see if he wanted to, he hit me up and said, hey, Martin, we'd like to do lunches. I said, okay, that's fine, Will. We really would like that, but I don't want 2 weeks worth of peanut butter and jelly like we had last year, because that just didn't fly. You know, I wouldn't want to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich 2 weeks in a row, every day, day in and day out. And they made them a week ahead. And by the end of the week, those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were really not something that we would want to feed. And so we ended up throwing some of them away. And I said, we don't want to do that. We want to have a mixture of things, and we want to make them up as we go. We don't want to make them up ahead of time so that they're not something that we would eat. Because when we do homeless ministry, we don't give out half-eaten hamburgers. We give out good stuff. And not only did Lowe's give us the lunches for the last 2 years and are going to do it again this year, but this warehouse didn't have any place to keep things cold, food-wise. And so they brought a brand new refrigerator, cut it out of the box, hooked it up, put the handles on and all that kind of stuff, plugged it in, let us use it for 2 weeks, and then they came back and took it home, took it back to Lowe's, and I don't know what they did with it. If they put it back out on the floor as a floor model, I don't know. I mean, we didn't hurt it hard, and it was back in a back room, and only our staff used it, but it just was incredible, you know. And this is corporate America coming to the church and saying, we want to partner with you to share the love of Jesus. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I pray our love will overflow more and more and more. And then several times, and it's not just Lowe's. My mom has a friend who I went to school with her son, and she's in the Easton area, and her husband, Wayne, has dementia and can't be left alone. And so Shirley needs things to do, and so she likes to knit. And so she has gotten, the last 3 years, she has sent us a supply of hats for our homeless men's shelter. The 3 rows on the right are the ones for the homeless men's shelter. And the 2 rows on the left are ones that she made for Emma's class, girls and boys. She always contacts me and finds out how many boys and girls Emma has in her class. And for the last 3 years, she's been making hats for the boys and girls of Emma's class. Last year, she made scarves as well. And the cool thing about that is she's in Easton. She doesn't know anything about us, but it's a way that she can participate in the ministry and mission of Jesus that we do here in Salisbury. And then the really neat thing about it is just a couple weeks ago, in fact, I still have the big bags in the back of our car, Sharon's car. I had a friend here in Salisbury contact me. She knew we had done this, or somebody had done this for us. She said, our knitting club was just given a whole bunch of big bags of yarn, and we have stuff that we won't use. Can you use it? I said, absolutely. My mom's friend Shirley would love to have those big bags because that saves her from having to buy them. And so those are in the back of our car ready to go down to my mom so that she can take them to Shirley. And they'll probably come up here next year and be given out to our homeless men and Emma's class. It's really neat. And also, several times a year, we join the people at Grace United Methodist Church on Church Street doing God's Kitchen, where we prepare, serve, and clean up a meal on Saturday for anywhere from 100 to 150 to 200 people. We never know how many are going to come. But they're all people who have need. And we're grateful to be able to serve those in need because Jesus calls us, as one of our core values says, to be among the broken. I pray that our love for Christ will overflow more and more and more. On February 14th of last year, Valentine's Day, our now 11-year relationship with Pinehurst Elementary School was honored when we were invited to a spaghetti dinner where the staff served us with smiles and joy in appreciation for the relationship that we have had with Pinehurst Elementary School. Pinehurst Elementary School is our local neighborhood public elementary. They invited the church to come to them so that they could honor us for all of the ways that we have blessed them in 10 years. Last year it was 10 years. This is 11 years. This is year 11. I continue to be grateful to you for the generous ways that you respond to Pinehurst, the needs that they have, and to show love and encouragement there. It is game-changing. And if you haven't been in a classroom and you don't know the hard job that teachers have, just go and volunteer 1 hour. Just 1 hour. You don't have to do a thing. Just sit in the classroom and observe. And I'll bet you what, you'll come out of there with a better appreciation for what teachers go through day in and day out. And not just teachers, but the staff, everybody who's associated with a school. The only job worse is being a bus driver. I'm convinced of that. Because you got to drive and you can't discipline. Hide, But there we are. They had decorated the cafeteria. They just served a beautiful meal in appreciation for us. And 4 years ago, the administration of Pinehurst asked us if we would start coming in on 1 day a week to lead prayer times for their staff. And I said absolutely. And so every year at the beginning of school, this is the first day this year, we gather with staff who want to outside. And we have a time of prayer for the staff, for the school, for the children, for the families, for the community, for the year. And then we continue that every Wednesday at 8 o'clock inside the school in the gym. And I had a friend ask me, isn't that illegal? No, there's nothing illegal about it at all. We're invited. We don't push ourselves. An announcement goes out over the whole loudspeaker system in the school. If you'd like to join for prayer, come on down in a few minutes to the big gym. It's that simple. If you don't want to join for prayer, they don't say this, but if you don't want to join, you don't have to come. Nobody's saying you got to. Nobody's taking attendance. It's a wonderful thing that we do at Pinehurst. In addition to that, because of the generosity of Belinda and her company, Pies Etc., one day last year, we took in a whole bunch of pies that she had left from market. It was a rainy market, as I remember, a nasty weather day where she didn't have the customers that she expected. And she said, what am I going to do with these? And so she texted me and said, hey, what about this idea? And I said, it sounds like a great idea. And so she brought these pies and brought them in and she set them up. Look how beautifully she decorated. Only thing I did was buy the flowers. Or no, I didn't buy those. You bought those. Yeah, she bought those. I usually buy the flowers, but she bought the flowers. And look what kind of flowers she bought. Sunflowers is the flower of love. And the staff absolutely loved it. In addition to that, we do, like we're going to do this Thursday, we do soup lunches. We do at least one a year. And we do cookie feasts, and occasionally we set up candy jars. That's a big old punch bowl that I have that I filled with candy and took in. That was a day last year when it was a snow day that they had to give back. And so I thought, what a cool thing. Thank you for spending your holiday with our children. I knew nobody wanted to be there. A little bit of candy goes a long way of helping you feel better, especially when it's chocolate. And usually we give last year we gave some hand sanitizer and tissues with a little note to each teacher because, we recognize that teachers have to buy things out of their pocket all the time for their classroom. And so why not recognize them and do something nice? And then there's this guy, Bob. He gets called on a lot to go down in the basement at Pinehurst and put together bikes. They have companies like McDonald Corporation or Ripley's, believe it or not, that donates bikes. And the bikes come in a big box, all apart. Lots of pieces. Sometimes the pieces aren't even all there. And there's Bob. He comes down there and puts those bikes together when he's called on so that they can be used as rewards for good behavior. Really neat. I just love the ways in which we're able to be involved in the life of Pinehurst Elementary School. And see, even our youth get involved. This was one of the snack days, the cookie days that we did. So they gave up one of their Cassie's taste testing. But they made chocolate covered pretzels and some other things that we gave to the teachers to say thank you for what you do. And it's just wonderful that our youth get involved in what we do. Every year at Christmas time, we buy presents for about 20 children at Pinehurst Elementary School. And this was our youth this year wrapping those presents. They come and because of the generosity of Karen and Walt Townsend, we are able to give each child a full uniform because Karen gets a huge discount through JCPenney's. And the uniforms cost maybe $3 or $4 a set. And so we're able to give each child 3 gifts. And here's our youth being involved in this process, helping to wrap those presents. And then at our Joy Fest last year, the year before, we bought choir T-shirts for the Pinehurst Choir. And so at Joy Fest, we invited them to come and sing. And they came and sang. That's them. We thought they'd wear their T-shirts. They thought they were going to church. So they dressed up. They didn't realize it was going to be cold and going to be outside. But last year's Joy Fest was like the best attended Joy Fest we've had in a while. And Joy Fest is just a time of saying to the neighbors in the neighborhood, come and just hang out. We have famous Walt's pulled pork. The best pulled pork around. You won't find any better. And adding to that is Karen's version of Louise Mahan's wonderful coleslaw. It's the yummiest. And then you got the hired hands who work hard at pulling the pork, and they also stay up late at night or early in the morning with Walt getting it ready and stay long after we're done cleaning up. We appreciate that. And then there's the opportunities for us to be in service of our neighbors and the community that comes. It's a wonderful time. We got that idea when we first moved here in 2008. I don't know if you remember then, but the news in this neighborhood wasn't good. There were neighborhood associations that were doing all kinds of things and always in the news. And we said, let's do something positive. Let's do something to make a difference in our community. And so the Joy Fest, we called it a pork roast at first, and we went door to door inviting neighbors to come the first several years, and it morphed into Joy Fest, and that's what it's been. And we have just a fun time. It's free, no strings attached, lots of good eating and lots of good connecting. And then every year for the last 7, 8, 9 years, I don't remember how long, it hasn't been 9 years because we did our first in 2010 and then we let it go for a while and then we brought it back. So maybe it's been about 7 years. Every time there's a 5th Sunday in the month, we do what we call Be a Blessing. We don't have worship. And we either have projects in here or go out into the community to be a blessing. And here's a team we sent over to the community players theater group to their costume closet. You can see they've been having fun in the costume closet that helped organize the costume closet. Our neighbor across the street is in that picture. She's in the blue in the corner, and her daughter's the other one in the blue behind Jenna. And I asked them if we could do that, and they were thrilled that we sent a team over. We normally do something on Be a Blessing Sundays in one of the community gardens, either the Camden Community Garden, the Waterside Community Garden, or the Boundless Community Garden. That's the tomatoes that we're tearing down from last year's crop at the Camden Community Garden. We send teams out and do things for the city. The city has lots of drains, storm drains, that the water that drains off the streets goes into the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And so they wanted to mark it and encourage people not to dump. And so we sent teams out doing that. And we had planned to continue doing that for a while. Then we made birthday cards for every staff member at Pinehurst. And the beginning of the month, I take that month's birthday cards over. They're handmade, handwritten to each of the staff members, and I put them in the mailboxes. And I've heard people express appreciation for that, the beautifulness of that. There we are before the National Folk Festival, beautifying our streets. That was an overgrown area that the city really wanted to get cleaned up before the folk festival, and we took a team there, and that was a miserably hot day. But there we were, working and doing that work. One of the things the leadership team was noticing is that in the last year or so, the enthusiasm for Be a Blessing Sundays has waned. They're not as well attended. It's hard to get people here at 9 o'clock. We just feel like there's a lack of enthusiasm for them. So we've decided as a leadership team that 2019 is going to be a sabbatical year. We're not going to do Be a Blessing Sundays on Sunday mornings. And we may revisit it. We may not. It may have run its course. I don't know. We all agreed we like it. We all agreed that doing it on a Saturday we don't think will be as effective as doing it on Sunday morning. And it's not as eye-catching to the non-churched people. And so we're going to just let them go for 2019. But we did agree that the inside projects that Kathy Cannon took leadership of were wonderful. And they helped us, like the birthday cards and various things. They helped us with our connection with Pinehurst. And so we've asked Kathy if she would continue doing some inside projects as fellowship events, as opportunities for us to get together, any who want to come. And she has said she will. And so watch for some of those. We don't have any planned yet, but we'll be planning some in this coming year. And there'll be opportunities for us to get to know one another and be a blessing in our community. I love it when you see Cassie disappeared again. I love it when you see our values being lived out in our children. This note was found downstairs by Pastor Sharon in the Sunday school room after the Twig family was cleaning on their weekend to clean, or their week to clean. They came one time and Cassie came with them, and she did a little extra work in the Sunday school room, and she left a note, and it just touched our hearts. It was heartwarming to find this note that Cassie had cared a little extra and done some work down there in her Sunday school room. And so, it's really neat to see our core values being lived out in our children. And I guarantee you that mom and dad didn't put her up to it. It was totally her idea. And that's really cool when you see that. Also this year, we did our third year of Summer Lunch at the Garden. Summer Lunch at the Garden is predominantly led by the Restoration Project. We help them, and we cycled back to the Board of Ed to provide the lunch. And the Board of Ed, when they provide the lunch, they start a week after school stops, and they end 3 weeks before school starts. And so that means that we had these kids that were hungry for 3 weeks, that we've been feeding them all summer. And all of a sudden, like August the 5th, I think it was this year, they stopped. And we were like, this can't be. We have to keep serving through the rest of the summer. And so I put it out there on Facebook. I said, any businesses want to join us in this effort? We want to provide a meal. And within an hour, Rody Joe's messaged me. Jeremy said, we will take a whole week. And then Matt Thompson of Mayabella's Pizza said, we'll take a couple of days. And then an individual couple of friends of mine who are a couple said, we'll take 2 days. And that left out. Then St. Francis right across the street messaged me and said, we'll take a week. That left 3 days for us, Community of Joy. our folks jumped in and served a meal. And so we went right up to the Friday before school started, after Labor Day, providing meals. It's heartwarming. It's amazing. One of the neat experiences that one of our garden neighbors had this year, this is Zai Addis. He was lived directly across the street from the playground and became a huge asset at the Camden Community Garden. I nominated him to be mayor for the day, and he got to be mayor for the day in February. He wore a suit, he signed a proclamation, he visited the mayor's office, he visited the fire company, the police department, and the public works, and he had the time of his life. And then we ended the day having lunch with Mayor Day. And when I took his eye back, it was about lunchtime at Pinehurst. We walked in the door, and his class was coming down the steps going to lunch, and 3 of his buddies laughed at him in his suit. "What'd you do?" He said, "I'm mayor for the day." And they changed their tune real quickly and said, "Can we be your bodyguards?" It's a day he'll never forget. And what a neat opportunity. What a neat opportunity. I pray, brothers and sisters, that our love will overflow more and more so that people will see Jesus in us and might be drawn to him. Sorry, I lost my place. I got going and not looking at my notes. One of the cool things that we did last year is that we were able to introduce some new folks among us to the beauty of Camp Mardella. Camp Mardella is our church camp in Denton, Maryland. We sent Sky and Andrade and their older brother, Billy. Sky and Andrade had such a good time that they went back for a second week each at camp. And that was because of the generosity of both Camp Mardella, who underwrote it, and you. They've already been asking, when's camp this year? And it's a neat opportunity for them to experience the love of Jesus in yet another setting. I pray, brothers and sisters, that our love for Jesus will overflow more and more as we make him known in our community and world. We had multiple visits last year from our friends Bob and Bogart and the 1 Million Acts of Kindness bus, and I got invited by Bob to leave my mark on the bus. And you know, I had to write something with a sunflower and something about growing. Through the connections that we have with Salisbury's Kindness Queen and now Secretary of Kindness, Grace Murdoch, our influence in the world is growing. This gentleman in the red shirt is Michael Lloyd White, who is an Australian who has led the World Kindness organization and now is the leader of the World Kindness USA organization. And he is helping Salisbury be on target to be the first U.S. city to be designated as a World Kindness USA city because of some of the work that we've been doing at the garden through summer lunch and with our friend Grace is part of what's being recognized as getting us that designation in 2019. It's really cool. You may not know that our influence extends beyond these walls, down the street to Salisbury University. In the spring of this year, they opened a food pantry. You might wonder, why does a university need a food pantry? Well, we discovered last year that there are indeed homeless college students right here at Salisbury University. Some of them couch surf on friends' couches. Some of them sleep in their car. Some of them go without eating because they're paying their tuition and can't afford to have food. And so the university decided to open up it was the Presidential Scholars forum that decided to open up a food pantry. They reached out to me. They did some consulting with me about food pantries and about our community and what I thought would work. And then they invited me to the ribbon cutting. The young man who's bald there with glasses in the center, Drew, is the guy who was the spearheading this project. Inside the door of that food pantry, which is down by the bookstore on the lower level of the Commons, is a sponsor's poster, and Community of Joy's logo is on that poster because of the work that we did with them in consulting with them, getting it ready. Our youth traveled to Colorado in July of last year and had a great time at National Youth Conference. And we heard about that one Sunday, and we're grateful for that, and we're preparing for the next year in 4 years. They even made the cover of our national magazine, Church of the Brethren denominational magazine, right above my finger, one person between me and Maddie, and then down to the left is Leanne. And then inside, we believe that the person in yellow, all the way above my finger, is Jenna. And then Belinda had a write-up, which I didn't get a picture of, about some of the things our youth group does that was published in that as well. And so it's really cool. We want to say a big thank you to our youth advisors. Last year, most of the year was Greg, Belinda White, Greg Twigg, and Miss Tammy Brown. And the last half of the year has been Greg and Caroline. And now this year, Emma has joined them as Caroline's job situation has changed. And she's not always available at times. So we're grateful for your leadership and your influence in the lives of our youth. Our youth asked if one of their weekly gatherings could be service-oriented. And so they do some kind of a service project once a month. And this is them after having washed the fire engines at the Fruitland Fire Company. It just is really cool to see all of the ways that we can spread love and kindness in our community. May our love for Jesus overflow more and more and more. I find myself being invited into lots of community roles, and especially was true in 2018. Here is my friend Officer Bull Hutchison, and Dr. Donna Hanlon of the Wicomico County Public Schools Superintendent. We were the celebrity judges at the Smelly Sneaker Contest and yes, they were smelly, for the Coastal Hospice Kids Kick event. And it was quite an honor to be asked to do that. Just a few weeks later, when we got the news that Bull took his life, the day after it happened, I got a phone call from someone in this community who I did not know at the time. And I only know now by her name and face, asking if I would speak at a candlelight vigil that evening downtown Salisbury on what's now called the Boulevard. At a time when our community was struggling with raw emotions, with hurt, with disbelief, with anger, with sadness, about 500 people came. What an honor to be able to share words, to remember, to encourage people not to struggle alone, to reach out. May the love of Christ overflow more and more and more in our lives. When the city revamped the parking garage and made it the most colorful building in downtown, I was honored to see that community gardens featured prominently on a banner outside with other key aspects of our community life. In fact, I was sitting across the street from the government office building, having a cup of coffee, working on a sermon when the public information officer, Chris Damone, called me and said, "Hey, Martin, let's go get a picture of you in that banner." And so that's the picture he took. It's the most beautiful building downtown, and what an honor to have community gardens recognized for the transforming role they're playing in our city's life. And speaking of community gardens, I was called on by the Lower Shore Enterprises. Lower Shore Enterprises is a group in our community that seeks to help adults with disabilities find employment or volunteer opportunities in our community. They decided after working 2 summers in our community gardens that they wanted to have their own community garden where they could grow food to be given to the Maryland Food Bank. So right across the street is the Maryland Food Bank. And on Maryland Food Bank property, we erected this community garden. I helped them, consulted with them on how, and helped them set it up. We're setting the irrigation system here up that day. And they have been growing, all fall, have been growing food to go in the distribution packets of food from the Maryland Food Bank. It's really, really cool. I wish I remembered the gentleman's name in the red shirt, but he's one of the Lower Shore Enterprise clients, and the enthusiasm he had that day for what he was now able to do was unreal. And I was invited to come to Pinehurst Elementary School when they were working on a beautification project and beginning conversations about becoming a green school. For the 3rd year in a row, I found myself among special invited guests at the Wicomico County Public School opening ceremonies at the Civic Center. What a wonderful day that is. I mean, I don't know how you feel as a teacher, Heather, but as a participant, it's a really cool day when every staff member from the school system comes. A lot of energy. Yeah, Joy was there. April's there. It's just really a cool day. And so I've been able to be a part of that 3 days. And it's all because of this connection we have with Pinehurst Elementary School, the ways in which we share love. Was invited to speak at the local Rotary Club to share the story of the Camden Community Garden and the summer lunch program. And that's Susie Peterson, the founder of the summer lunch program at the garden. And that Salisbury Rotary Club funds through a grant Salisbury Art Space, who brings the staff and the supplies to do art all summer long in the summer lunch at the garden. And they're working at it even this year. They're in some leadership changes at Salisbury Art Space. The executive director has had some health issues, brain related, and she's stepping aside. And she was concerned that we were going to lose that funding because we didn't have a mechanism for it. And I said, Community of Joy will stand in the gap and do whatever we need to. If they need to give it to us so that we can disperse it, we'll figure that out. But we'll figure out a way so that there can be art at summer lunch at the garden. And Rotary I hope they'll work with us. That's a prayer item. I'm sure they will. They love it. Absolutely love it. Then I got to stand in for Susie when Salisbury did its first Kindness Awards, and Susie was recognized at Dance for Kindness, but she wasn't there. She was recognized for the work that she did founding the summer lunch at the garden and the impact that's having in our community. And it was an honor to stand in for her and be able to receive the recognition from Mayor Jake Day that day and then to pass it on. And then, our friend Grace is just always doing kind things, and she always calls me and invites me to join her. And so we did last year in February, coming up this year in February, we're doing a Random Acts of Kindness Day for Random Acts of Kindness Week, and some of that got featured in the Independent. We were recognized in October, I believe it was, at the 50K Souls Awards Banquet for the work that we've done in helping them. We haven't done it recently. Somebody at the 9 o'clock says, let's do it some this year. And so hopefully we can get back into doing some Saturday distributions with them. They go out into neighborhoods of need and take a box of food, knock on the door, say, here's a box of blessing to remind you that God loves you. And if you don't mind, we'd like to pray with you. And most often people are so touched and blessed. We stand there and pray, and then we gather in the streets later after the teams have all dispersed the food and sing and pray for that community. It's just a beautiful time. It's multi-church, multi-state, multi-ethnic. It's a picture of what heaven has got to be like, coming together as one. And we did some work here around our facility. You see, we painted the outside. That's not a picture of what it looks like now. It's a little more purpley, but it is painted now. And we removed 7 male squirrels. I don't know where the females were. But the males were here, and they were tearing off the side of our soffit and coming in, the fascia coming into the roof system that's above this ceiling. And so we got them out of there. We got that fixed, and they were using the tree as the way to climb up and jump onto the roof and get access. And so that's why our friend Todd Dudek came and cut down the tree for free, thanks to Tri's connection with Todd. And then Todd used it for firewood all summer or all winter. And then we had a tree that God took down. We didn't take down, and we're grateful that it fell the way that it did and not out in the street. And thanks to Tri for spending many hours cutting that up and getting it out of the way. In January, I served on a panel about homelessness. There were 3 of us at Salisbury University, which was the impetus for that food bank, food closet that they set up. They had invited the community into this forum to hear, and then they divided us up into groups and did some exploring around the issue of homelessness in the community. And it was an honor to be a part of that. I served 4 different schools with the Ward Museum Stream program, after school program, talking about the power of growing vegetables and the community garden and what we can do there. I talked at Parkside CTE horticultural program. In addition to being in the paper many times, we've been on TV. That was On the Bright Side with Erica Murphy. Second time the Camden Community Garden has been featured on that. Jenny Rosenkrantz for the second time came and did a Delmarvelous Gardens segment for half an hour with us in the Camden Community Garden. And then Pastor Martin's famous strawberry pie made an appearance on Delmarva Life. And I tried to represent you. I went and had a COJ logo on a apron. Yeah, thank you. I don't wear them very often, and so I was trying to figure out what it was. And then Susie and I had the honor of being on right before summer lunch to talk about summer lunch on Delmarva Life. And then, we as a congregation have a special way of caring for one another. And we don't always do it well, but sometimes we do. And we need to keep working at that. And that's one of our challenges as we move into the year. But thanks to Kathy Cannon for leading the charge at a time when Connie was really down and out and really struggling. Kathy got this idea to have Team Sour T-shirts made, always be in the will of God. And we're grateful to have Connie here with us this morning. We've seen God do some amazing work of transformation and recovery and healing in your life. And you walked in this morning, and I tell you what, there were days that I visited you in Baltimore that I was pretty sure I would never see you walk in our doors again. And yet here you are, and we are so grateful. And yes, yay God. And thank you, Kathy, and thank you to all who bought T-shirts and wear T-shirts. And, there's just so many ways that we continue to need to support one another through life's ups and downs. In addition to all of that, I am grateful for so many people in this congregation, for the leadership roles they play. I'm grateful for Doug at 9 o'clock for being our pianist. I'm grateful for the praise team who play week in and week out with headaches, feeling sick, nauseous, whatever. They give tremendously of their time. Bethany and Joy and Kelly and Greg and Tanya. And you've noticed that we're missing Gary. Gary fell off the way sometime late last fall. And I'm really still not sure why. I know he's not coming back. He's communicated that. I'm really not sure, fully understanding why he's not among us. Thanks to those of you who reached out to him. It is sad because he was a part of our life for the better part of 9 years as a congregation. So just continue to pray, I guess, and reach out as the Lord leads you. Thankful for the leadership team, for Tracy Townsend as our leadership team chair, for Tri Townsend as the properties team chair and also on leadership team, for Jean Talls as our financial secretary, Sally Ruby, Heidi E. just completed a term as our treasurer, and now Matt Hutchison stepping up to that role. Matt's on our leadership team as well. Kelly Fagans, Greg Twigg, Pastor Sharon, and myself. It's just, we're grateful for so many. We're grateful for the cleaning teams and the mowing teams and the nursery teams and all the people that make the sound operators, just everybody that's a part of this congregation that makes it what it is. We're also part of a global church family. And I know this is getting long, and there's no way not to have it be long. But I want to share with you a letter that was specifically addressed to Community of Joy, though it was specifically addressed to every Church of the Brethren congregation that's in our denomination, in our nation, and maybe even globally. Came out in early January from our General Secretary, is what he's called. He's the head of our denomination. We happen to have gone to seminary with him and are good friends with David Steele. Greetings in the name of our Savior, born for us, the Messiah, our Lord. On behalf of our worldwide staff, volunteers, and mission and ministry board, I want to express our gratitude for the many ways you faithfully strive to live out the gospel, to simply try to do what Jesus did. The vital ministries of Church of the Brethren congregations, from small to large, are at the heart of our denomination. Your witness is essential in our partnership as we together herald the good news of the birth of Jesus Christ. As we close the year, we celebrate that our brethren witness is meaningfully extended into new places in new ways. The Church of the Brethren is seeking to be known, to become a global Church of the Brethren. Our growth around the world and our commitment to deeper and more meaningful relationships are helping this vision become a reality as we enter 2019. In August, Josiah and Christine Ludwig and their children began a year of service in Rwanda to preach, teach, and demonstrate a brethren way of living. Their appointment is vital to the efforts of establishing a peace testimony in the Great Lakes region of Africa as they host theological education and training and assist in the construction of church buildings and deepen relationships. So we're involved in Rwanda. We've been hearing a lot about Venezuela lately in the news. He says in Venezuela, the Brethren witness is growing, but economic turmoil has prevented the placement of mission staff there at this time. Global mission and service staff and volunteers travel there when possible and work with Venezuelan leadership to broaden the understanding of our church's theology and practice. Brethren in Spain continue to add to new congregations and expand their membership. Many are immigrants, but Spanish citizens are beginning to take notice and come to services. So you see, we're a global church. Haitian brethren have proved themselves faithful again this year by reaching out to the suffering when an earthquake struck in the north of the country. In Nigeria, Global Mission Executive Jay Whitmire was present at the commissioning of a new EYN congregation at the Gurku Interfaith Camp for Displaced People. The Nigerian Brethren also commissioned their newest church district in Lagos, with EYN now numbering 55 districts. The Nigerian church is larger than the U.S. Church of the Brethren. The Nigeria crisis response continues to bring healing and hope to thousands of families displaced by violence. I'm going to put a footnote in here, an aside. In March, you'll see in your program an announcement sheet in March, on March 9th, at Denton Church of the Brethren, just an hour from here, you're going to have the opportunity to meet the former president of the Nigerian Church of the Brethren and his wife, Rebecca and Samuel Daly. Rebecca has been recognized by the United Nations for the work that she's done after the kidnapping of the Chibok girls. Many of them were Church of the Brethren, and then she's been working with resettling them after they've been released from the captivity. And she's been recognized from that. They're going to be at the Denton Church of the Brethren on March 9th, which is Saturday. You're invited to a carry-in meal. You're invited to a time of worship and a time of hearing their testimony, if you care. Mark that down. Now back to the letter. Embracing Jesus' call to go and make disciples has been at the heart of our ministries throughout this year. Youth and advisors gathered at National Youth Conference to be challenged in their walk of faith. Church planters and others gathered at the New and Renew Conference for professional development and encouragement for the work of nurturing new disciples. The Discipleship Ministries team provided resource leadership at congregational and district events, web-based learning opportunities, and collaboration with Bethany Seminary for an urban ministry intensive in Atlanta. For Brethren Disaster Ministries, the loss of Paradise Church of the Brethren, you may recall, one of the California fires in Paradise, California, wiped out one of our churches. And most of the congregation's homes ended an intense year of responding to disasters, including a rebuilding project in North Carolina that closed during Hurricane Florence, but quickly reopened to help people affected by Hurricane Matthew. In Puerto Rico, our disaster response expanded into the mountains around Castaner, where a long-term home rebuilding project will continue through next year. If you're interested in going on a disaster response trip, they're happening all the time. Let me know. I'll get you connected with the people. They send them for a week or two at a time all around our country and world. Children's disaster services go in after disasters and care for the children who are affected, of the families affected, while they're filling out FEMA papers and all that. They supported families affected by floods, hurricanes, volcanoes, shootings, and the campfire that burned Paradise. Together, we have shared hope and God's love. God has enabled us to extend Christ's mission, serving those in need, both near and far, growing disciples, calling and developing leaders, and transforming communities. Thank you for your partnership, your generous support, and your prayers. May we together continue the work of Jesus with hope and gratitude. Just an aside, we haven't been able financially to contribute to our denomination as well as we should in years past. I hope that's going to change this year. They do a lot of work. They do a lot of work that we can't do in our world. That's beautiful and needs to be done. May our love for Christ overflow more and more. We have some challenges in 2019, and I'm almost done. Typical small church struggles. The 9 a.m. worship service continues to be small and will maybe struggle with leadership, music leadership. Doug and Sally have announced that they're preparing to move to Harrisonburg, Virginia in the coming year or two. And when they go, that'll leave a huge void and a question of whether we continue with a 9 o'clock worship service. The roller coaster of people coming and going. When you see people that haven't been here, not be here, or have been here for a while, not be here anymore, reach out in some fashion and let them know that they're missed. We'll continue to work at, as we talked about last week, deepening connection with each other, community. And finances continue to be a challenge for us as a congregation. Please continue to prayerfully consider what you give. And if you can just do one thing in that regard, it'll make a huge impact. And that is, consider being an every week giver, including the weeks you're not here. Every time Pastor Sharon and I are away, we either put in a check before we leave or after we leave for the week that we're gone. And I think it makes a huge difference in our congregational's life. Now, in that regard, I want to end with some good news. Teresa Kapazinski, who many of you probably didn't know. She was a dear, sweet, eccentric little lady that came to our 9 o'clock service. She had a clown ministry. She was a former nun. She left the convent to get married. She had a life that was eclectic as all get out. She found her home with us and came and participated in the life of our congregation till she came down with cancer. She left her estate of over $512,000 to be divided basically 4 ways, 25%, to 4 charities. One of those charities was Community of Joy. Now, we're not getting a quarter of $512,000 as we should, because stepsons and lawyers got involved, and they ate up just about half, $249,000 of their estate, of her estate. The good news is there was a point in this journey when I didn't think we were going to get anything. I didn't think Teresa's wishes were going to be honored. I got a letter last week indicating that we and the other 3 charities, the 4 charities involved totally, are each getting $40,000. So we will receive $40,000 this year, and it is going to be my recommendation to leadership team that we apply that directly toward our mortgage, which is just around $100,000 right now, and that'll take it down and help us to pay it off significantly earlier, which is what Teresa really wanted. She really wanted to be a blessing. She loved the ways in which we shared love in our neighborhood, community, and in our world. And to that, I say, yea, God. Brothers and sisters, every time I think of you, I thank God for you. I thank God for you and am grateful for the partnership in the mission and ministry of Jesus that we have had and that we will continue to have. God, who began a good work in us, I am confident will continue to do that work in us and through us. And I pray that in 2019, our love for Jesus will overflow more and more. Thank you for what you contribute to the life of this church. We would not be Community of Joy without each of you. Thanks be to God.